G'day, welcome to the Financial Bloke Podcast, the podcast for people seeking the wisdom needed to grow their family's wealth and live a happier, healthier and more prosperous life. My name's Ben Law and I am the Financial Bloke. Imagine waking up one day and logging onto your computer only to find that you've been hacked. Maybe you've received a ransom message that all your data's been locked up. Maybe they got control of your email or some other app. Or maybe you've logged onto your internet banking and a couple of $1,000 is missing. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 100 grand has gone from the overdraft. Imagine if they now have access to all your personal data, which includes your ID, and they're out there impersonating you, borrowing money, ruining your reputation, and maybe even destroying your agribusiness. It's the stuff of nightmares and is becoming all too frequent occurrence. I know of at least half a dozen people that have been affected, with the most severe being the loss of almost $200,000 in invoice fraud. For most of us, we just take a few precautions and hope it will never happen. Now, I don't want you to become one of the statistics. So how do you protect yourself? Well, that's why we've got our guest on here today. His name's Joel Winters and he's a cyber security specialist. He's joining us today to educate us on cybercrime and give us some tips on what we can do to beef up our defences against cybercrime. So who is Joel? He's a highly experienced IT specialist at ProComputers, which has offices in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast and Rockhampton, and is currently pursuing a postgraduate degree in cybersecurity. In this episode, Joel will be giving us some background on cybercrime and some top tips on the things that you should put in place right now to start protecting both yourself and your agribusiness. Remember, the first step towards change is awareness. So without further delay, welcome Joel.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Thanks for this opportunity.
Fantastic. Now, mate, before we kick off this, can you just give us a bit of a short background on yourself so everyone knows who you are and what you're all about?
Excellent. No, thank you. So I'm one of 5 kids, born in Moranbah, raised in Mackay. I'm a little property just north of Mackay at the Leap. The rest of my family still live in Mackay. I'm the only one that escaped and headed down south to the big city. I spent the majority of my first part of my IT career in networking, working in how all the computers connect and get online and stay and talking to each other. But as things have progressed and the internet's taken over, networking's sort of taken a back seat for most businesses. So I made the move and went across to cybersecurity. Obviously, with everyone now relying on the internet and applications online, they've got to stay secure and make sure that they're protecting their data and protecting their access. So for the last 5 years, I've been focusing solely on cybersecurity, making sure businesses are up to date and informed.
Excellent. Now, cybercrime is more and more in the news. I mean, I'm very aware of it now, and I think most business owners are starting to become aware of it. Can you just tell us, what is cybercrime from your point of view, and what impact is it actually having, or what are you seeing the impact is on people and business right now?
Yep, that's a good question. A lot of people get confused between a hack and a scam. People need to understand a scam is as old as time. People have been scamming people for as long as they can get a quick buck. But the scams are still a type of issue we've got to be worried about. So, those random phone calls, those funny text messages you're getting telling you to do something. But scammers obviously are just as bad as hackers. They're trying to steal your money. A hack, on the other hand, uses technology to cause the issue, whether they're hacking into a computer to steal data, whether they're hacking into an account to steal money or to fraudulently behave and pretend to be you. Hacks are what we can try to defend. It's very hard to stop a scam. As soon as they find your phone number, they're going to call you or they're going to text you or they're going to try to you can still get scams at your front door. People come and knock on your front door trying to get you to donate to a charity that doesn't exist. So scams are a lot harder to prevent. Obviously, education is going to help there. But hacks are stuff, there are proactive steps you can take to protect yourself from being hacked. Now, where it's affecting people and businesses, even this time 2 years ago, we'd get on average 5 people coming into our retail store a week, one a day with a scam or hack-related issue. Nowadays, we're nearly seeing 20, nearly 4 times the amount of people are walking into our stores every week with some type of hack or scam issue. And so obviously it's happening a lot more frequently. I think it's not just happening more. I think people are a little bit more conscious about it because, what they're hearing in the news. Business related though, it's going rough because due to COVID, everyone jumped online with their businesses, created work from home environments. The internet's been getting better, getting to more wide places. People can get on Starlink now, right in the middle of the bush, and stay online. So we're able to do so much with the internet, but the hackers are on top of that. The hackers they are attacking everybody. If you're on the internet, you're vulnerable. So business being forced to go on the internet just made it easier for hackers to attack us.
And I think so much more of our lives are online now. Like if I look at my business, the amount of things that I'm connected to and the amount of, I suppose, potential areas that could be attacked have exponentially grown as well.
That's exactly right. People, it's just today's day and age. Everything's done online. And sometimes too much is done online, to be completely honest.
And are they getting more sophisticated, or is it just the fact there's more volume?
Oh, definitely. They are getting more sophisticated. Hackers are using AI tools, just like the big businesses are using AI tools to improve, customer relations and customer service. Hackers are using AI tools to figure out where you are, socially engineer, being they look up your social profiles and find out a bit about you, who you work for, what footy team you follow, what footy team you're a part of, or what community groups you're a part of. And they're using this to create profiles to, we call it spear phishing. Spear phishing emails, or they just send a blanket email saying, hello, I'm your bank, click here and update your details. They don't know anything about you. But spear phishing is when they grab that information that's online about you and make it personal. So you think it's from a trusted source, from someone you know. And the problem is, with all this information online, we're sort of giving it to them. We're giving them the information they need to convince us that they're legit when they're not. So and I said that they're not personally doing it. They're using these AI tools to help them assist in making this happen. And they're coming out even more frequently. There's going to be a new hack before the end of this episode. I put money on it. It's
interesting. What I've noticed is, originally, when I first started to see hackings and things like that, and viruses getting in computers, etc., I had this naive thought that it was just essentially the dum-dums, people that just weren't being smart online. You click on the thing that was obvious, this is a virus, click on it, and people click on it. I know that's a silly example, but it seemed to me that the case. But over the last few years, I've noticed more and more sophisticated people are the ones that are falling prey. And it's not just to the really simple things like, I got an email from someone, I clicked on it, downloaded a virus, and now I've got a virus on my computer and it's been taken over. There's been that, but then they've been getting calls from people, they've been getting emails from people, and they've built this whole story. And then all of a sudden, they've been essentially stolen from, whether they're ID or money or whatever, and they've gone, oh, Ben, I feel so stupid. Of all the people that this could have happened to, I never thought it would have been me. And so are you finding that as well? It's not just the really basic stuff that's coming across your desk. It's like people are going, holy dooly, this is sophisticated.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's funny that some of the smartest people are actually more prone to be attacked. And there's for two main reasons. They've either got too much information out there about them, so it's very easy to target them, or they're too comfortable online. I went to a talk in Sydney a few months ago, and the speaker was talking about, being online is like going for a run. When you start running, you go and hit the pavement, you're a bit conscious about your body, you're conscious about your surroundings, you're really taking extra, cautious steps as you get through. And those people online are more likely to actually get scammed, not hacked, because there's no information about them. They're still figuring it out. They're still figuring out where to click and what to do. They're being probably a bit cautious, which is really good. You have the alternative of someone who's been running for years. They know the path really well. They're complacent. They run. They don't look as much as everyone else, but they know so much about it. So those people are so too comfortable, if you know what I mean, that they're going to get, well, in running terms, get hit by a car, but in computer terms, get hacked. There's so much information about them. They're complacent. They're not actually paying attention. They're like, oh, I know what I'm doing, and I'll click through it. And so that's why these smart people that they probably rely on computers a lot to do their job. They're very comfortable on the computer. And then when there's a lot of information out there about them as well, it's easy for the hackers to condition them and to use a sophisticated hack to get them tricked, whether they do multiple different ways to attack them. Email's still the most common, but getting them to go to a malicious website. It's the dummy hacks still exist, but the sophisticated hacks are definitely prolific. And if they're trying to get information out of somebody, they will be relentless to try to get it. And they'll hit you from every angle. And it's a fatigue job. They'll keep on hitting you until you make a mistake. And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because for many of them, there's no downside. Like we had a number of break-ins to our street earlier this year. There was 3 or 4 break-ins in the week. And eventually the cops said, that they hit the places, they have a couple of goes at houses, then the heat gets too much and then they disappear. And the downside for them is they get caught and go to jail. These hackers, most of them, they get discovered trying to break in or breaking in. There's no downside for them because they're based in overseas in some country that doesn't really care about this stuff. So for them, it's like just keep going, keep going, keep going. There's no fear factor for them in any way, shape or form. Is that correct?
Yeah. And the house break-in analogy you just used actually really relates to cybersecurity. When people's houses get broken into, they tell their neighbors, they got in through my back door. Make sure your back doors are locked, guys. They're jumping fences and breaking into your house. The problem is, and you mentioned it before, very smart, intellectual people, when they get hacked, they're embarrassed and they don't tell anybody. They keep it to themselves. They're not telling their neighbors to lock their doors. It's a little bit of the Aussie pride thing. You don't want people to know that you got tricked. But to be completely honest, as a cyber guy, I love it when people tell each other what happened, because it's not me telling people that this can happen. It's them hearing from their friend, I just got hacked. I just got scammed. Watch out for this. Because people are going to be more vigilant and more on alert when they know that the mate from down the road got done, so it can happen to me, rather than an expert coming into the room saying, hey, this is happening, guys, but no one's talking about it. So to them, it's not happening in their world. And you're exactly right. I went to on Anzac Day, I went down to the RSL, and my family have served in the forces, and got a couple of uncles and that are the veterans. And we were chatting over lunch, and one of the veterans said, it's really sad that they fought to defend our shores. These people aren't going to come and knock on our door. They're not going to attack Australia. We've got a very good armed force. But it's really sad how they're getting people's life savings out of their computer through the back door, because people are getting hacked and getting their supers taken off them and, getting tricked. And it is, as you said, they're not here. They're overseas, most of them. Some of them are here. There have been some hacking groups found down south in big capital cities, but most of them are overseas parties that are stealing our wealth that people have taken generations to build. So it is, it's not the same as a house getting broken into. As I said, they go to jail. These guys just dump their computer and show up again as another entity.
Today's episode is brought to you by AgriCoach. You've worked bloody hard over the years and you've built a solid operation. But as your children grow up and start their own journeys, you're beginning to think about the next 5, 10, and even 15 years and how to keep driving the business forward and ensure a smooth and successful succession plan. Preparing the business, preparing the next generation, and preparing for your eventual retirement all requires a solid plan and a proven process. Unsure about the right steps to take? Head on over to agricoach.com.au/webinar to learn more about our Succession Proof Your Family webinar. AgriCoach, aligning families, growing wealth, and protecting legacies. And now, let's get back to the episode. And so is it, and I'll go back to our neighbour that got broken into earlier this year, and they did 2 things, or 3 things they did. They broke into the house when nobody was home in the middle of the day in the broad daylight. They stole jewellery, the typical stuff, went in and grabbed the jewellery. They stole the car keys, so they took the car keys and the police said so they could come back later and steal the cars when they had them home at night. And the third thing was they took all their identification. So they got into one of the filing cabinets, they took their passports, they took copies of the driver's license, they took bank statements, they took all of their personal data, which they had just in a drawer in the office. And so for computer hacking these days, are you finding, are they more after money or are they after ID, or is it, they're after both?
To be honest, in most cases, they're after whatever the hell they can get. But personally identifiable information, where they can go and take your personal details and go create a bank account in your name and, get cash that way, that is obviously a lot more beneficial to them if they can get away with it than them just stealing some money at a bank account. What we're finding is on the personal side of things, so there's personal hacking and business hacking. On the personal side of things, a lot of people's emails get hacked, and the hacker will sit in an email and do reconnaissance for up to 6 months to a year, where they sit in the account and they just see who are you banking with, who's your tax going through, what businesses are you dealing with. And the way they're hacking in is because people use the same email and password on multiple accounts. but their email service didn't get hacked. Maybe one of those websites that they use was outdated, got hacked, and they went, oh, there's the email address, that's their username. Let's try that email address with this password that we just found from this website. Bang, they're in the email. And then they sit there and wait. They don't pop their head up and go, hey, I'm going to ransom you, pay me all this money, I'm in your email. They'll sit and wait and see what they can get out of you. And we're finding a lot of people's emails are hacked and they have no idea. And the number one way to fix that is change your password and make sure it's different.
And make sure it's not password.
Exactly. Make sure it's not password or 1234. There's actually a really cool website called Information is Beautiful. Look it up when you get the chance. And they have a password in picture graph where it shows all the most common passwords out there. And I've told a lot of people about this and they've been amazed to see their password in this picture graph. So, it's quite common. The other thing is on the business side, obviously they also want to get into business emails and they can sit around and get into business emails, but they really want to get into your accounts. They really want to pretend to be you and get money out of other people. And so once again, passwords there will save you. But with business, it's always about money is what we find. They're either going to steal your data and ask you for money, or they're going to try to get money out of your partners. So either way, as I said, they'll take what they can get.
And the interesting part about most of our listeners are agribusiness owners, so it's a combination of the two, isn't it? It's all your personal data is matched up with the business data, and there's no delineation between the two. Your office is in the home, yep. your personal emails, your work email, it's all tied into one, so you're hyper exposed. One of the examples where, like Sarah, my wife, she's a computer systems engineer by trade, so she's sort of hypersensitive around these things. And I remember when we started the Financial Bloke business, and she was really, really going on about invoice fraud. And I'm like, invoice fraud? What are you worried about this? And she put all these protocols around it. And essentially the way she explained this to me, Joel, and you can correct me if I've got this wrong, mate, is someone hacks your or someone else's email and then they intercept the invoice. So I send an invoice to Joel and I say, pay me $100. Joel gets the invoice and someone's hacked it. They've changed the bank account details. Joel pays where he thinks he's paying me $100. It goes into the hacker's account and then off they go. And I sort of looked at that and I went, is this really going to happen, Sarah? Like, are they going to sit around in my email address for like 9 months, a year, just waiting for some opportunity like this? And then lo and behold, I had a chat with someone a couple of weeks later and they said, yeah, one of our friends got this exact thing happen where they sent a bunch of animals off to an abattoir. And I think it was a fairly big order. It was like $200,000 worth of animals. And so they sent the animals off to the abattoir. They sent the abattoir the invoice. And I hope I've got this right, but it's roughly right. And then the abattoir went, oh, yep, it's $200,000. They paid the invoice. And then it was about a month later, the farmer stopped and went, we haven't been paid by the abattoir. That's really weird. They rang them up and they said, where's our money? And the abattoir turned around and said, we paid it like 3 weeks ago. We paid it within 7 days. And they're like, no, we've never received that money. And they said, yep, we paid your invoice. And lo and behold, that invoice that the abattoir had received was a different invoice with a different bank account on it. And of course, they received the invoice, they paid it, and then becomes the legal issues of who's liable, who's been hacked, who gets paid. And that $200,000 was gone. And it was that point that I looked at Sarah and went, holy shit, like that is a real problem. And I actually never thought email, what penetration into your email system and sitting there was that big a deal. But obviously it is. Are you seeing that happening more and more frequently in businesses, that invoice fraud?
Yep. And your explanation is spot on. That's exactly what happens. The technical side of it, they're either sitting in the sender or the receiver's account. And the invoice is 100%, it's 90% legit, I should say, because all they change is the BSBN account number. So all the details on the invoice is exactly what people are expecting to pay. But the BSBN account numbers change, they match the font and stuff like that. Where people need to understand is the hackers aren't sitting in your email and watching every single email come in. They're setting up AI tools that are scanning your emails, looking for keywords like invoice, like payment required and stuff like that. And that's when they quickly get in, intercept, make the change and drop it into the account. Like I get phone calls from businesses regularly calling me saying, hey, we've been hacked. This invoice got intercepted, blah, blah. And I go and have a look at it. And to be honest, a lot of the time, it's actually not the business. It's the receiver's end. The receivers have been hacked for quite some time and don't know about it. And they've been waiting for it. Business to business, obviously it depends on which side, but a lot of I'm talking in personal side, they get an electrician to come do some work, legitimate work. They were expecting the invoice. They pay the invoice. Electrician calls them in a week. Hey, where's my money? I paid it. No, you didn't. Back and forth starts. And Then they find out that the receiver's email was hacked, for example, and they were sitting there waiting for this invoice to come in to steal the money. And what they're doing, and a lot of people, I've had some people talk about, there's jobs advertised online, quick and easy money, work from home, get paid all this money. They prey on the people that need a job, and these people become a money mule for them. So the account details that get dropped into there is a legitimate Australian's bank account detail, and their job is to receipt that money, change it into Bitcoin, and send it off to the hackers. They're the front men that the cops end up arresting, and they end up being just the money mule. And obviously, by the time they're generally busted, the money's in the Bitcoin trade. It's gone. It's not coming back. They don't have the money, and they've just been used as a mule. So it's happening both personal and business. Obviously, everyone's got to be vigilant on it. I'm seeing some businesses get around that by handing out paper invoices and saying this is actually our invoice number. So please, record it. Or they're not even putting their their bank account details on their invoices. They're saying, please call me. And they pick up the phone and talk to the person and say, here's our bank account details. Have you got them? Yes. Cool. Gone through. But yeah, it's a hard one to fight because people don't know if they're hacked, and that's how they get done.
Yeah, well, one of the things we do in our business, which is when we send an invoice out to one of our clients, is we'll send an invoice out and we'll have a big thing across it. Do not pay this invoice until you've verified the bank account details with us. And so Sarah makes a time, rings up them and says, hey, you've got the invoice. Can you read the BSB and bank account out to us? And they read it out, and then they can go ahead and pay it. And that's just for the first invoice because then they've got our bank account details. We're not worried about it after that unless the details change. And I think that's just a really simple one that, if you think about farmers and graziers or anyone with a business, a lot of invoices get generated, sent out. And the problem is you think, oh, well, I'm not going to get hacked. I shouldn't worry about that because I've got all my things in place. But what about the contractor? And you all of a sudden transfer 20 grand over to the contractor or 100 grand. And all of a sudden you find out the bill hasn't been paid. Well, who's liable? And I think it's fair to say that I don't think the law's caught up with it yet as to who's actually liable. So even if you may not be liable, it's going to be a whole lot of mess around to probably deal with. So I always say to people is if you've got a new supplier and it's for a reasonable amount of money, call them up, verify those bank account details, and then you avoid all those issues altogether.
Yeah. Now, I say to a lot of my clients, if it's easy for you, it's easy for the hackers. If it's a little bit hard for you, if there's an extra step you need to get done, you make it a hell of a lot harder for the hackers. So you need to put complexity into the process. Well, obviously, computers make things a little bit more streamlined, but we have to then bring it back and add a little bit of difficulty to it to make sure things are secure.
Yeah, and I think you have to just assume it's like your house. You leave your house, you lock the doors. You should probably do the same for your computers. The other one that I came across, which blew my mind, was a family friend that's got a property, and essentially they got scammed where they got a phone call from someone saying they were from their bank, and then there was a problem with internet banking, and there's a bit of a long story, but essentially they built so much rapport with this friend of mine. They actually built rapport with that person, and they got them to transfer $1 over to a bank account, and they said, can you transfer $1 over to our account? I think they said they were from, was it the bank or was it Telstra? I can't remember. And they said, transfer that money over. And they said, oh, it hasn't turned up. And they said, can you transfer another $1? Because $1's nothing. It's like, oh, okay, I can transfer $1. And then all of a sudden they say, oh, no, it's turned up. We'll transfer it back. So they transfer the money back. And then the next thing you know, this went down the path and they said, oh, there's a problem with your computer. What we'll do is we'll send you an email. You can click on it and then we can just see your screen. And so they then, clicked on that naively. Like we say it now and go, oh, the idiots. But this person wasn't a dum-dum. They then had control because they thought this person was from the bank. They had control of the computer, and then they put a fake screen up. And so it looked like they were just doing something. And behind the scenes, they were literally changing passwords and setups and things like that. And then she went to bed that night and woke up in the middle of the night and went, something's not right. Got up and looked, and there was 20 grand gone from the overdraft. And she was like, I felt like such a drongo. She said, looking back, I feel so stupid. And hers was not a hack. It was the absolute scam. She got talked into it. And that's the ones that people never, ever talk about.
Yeah. You're right. And I've seen that exact same scenario with a lady who just started work after 5 years at home with the kids working for a real estate. Where she stuffed up is she actually put on Facebook that she's so excited to get back to work after being at home with the kids. And she put it publicly posted. 2 weeks into the job, the hackers called her, pretended to be the boss. She'd never spoken to the boss. She'd never met the boss of the name. That was the name of this real estate. They spoke to her by first name, addressed her by first name. And, all the social engineering must have gone in the background here. She ended up giving them access to her computer went home on Friday, came back Monday. Tens of thousands of dollars had been taken out of the account. All their systems were locked up. It was a complete mess. And the poor lady quit her job and went back to looking after kids. I feel real bad for her. It wasn't her fault. There was a lot of things that could have been done. But yeah, very sophisticated way that they did this. And they're not dummies. They spent a lot of time doing their research and they've had a lot of practice. They're hitting thousands of people. So by the time they hit you, they're very well versed and they know what they're doing. So you've really got to be conscious about who you're talking to and why are you talking to them? Why are they talking to you? Telstra will not call you. Amazon will not call you. Microsoft will not call you. These companies will update their systems or send you communication to call them. There. If you get a phone call from someone pretending that they're one of these big companies, it's 9 times out of 10 a scam. Hang up and call the listed number online.
And I think a lot of people get caught with that though, Joel, don't they? Because I know when I call any of these companies, you're on hold for like half an hour. And when someone rings you and you go, I've got to hang up because I think this person might be a scammer or it could be a scammer. And then I've got to ring Telstra back and sit on the hold for an hour. You can imagine people just going, oh, bugger it. I'll ignore my spider senses, which are tingling because this could be a problem. So, mate, around costs, I mean, you're studying this, so you know when you're dealing with it. What sort of cost is it to business that you're finding, like the average amounts that it's costing businesses? Is there any sort of scale around that or any guidance?
Yep. Well, the most recent report from 2022 stated for small business, an average hack costs around $39,000. That's the average, obviously. It goes up and down from there. Medium size is around 88. But the funny fact is that large-scale businesses only get about $62,000 in cost from a hack. And that's mainly because large-scale businesses have things in place to protect them. You think large-scale businesses have a lot more money coming in, and obviously they're a bigger target for the hackers. But because of systems in place, the actual impact of the hack is actually less than a medium-sized business, which generally doesn't have as much in place, or if anything. We're generally finding small businesses just have an antivirus and maybe they back up their data occasionally. That's a little bit dangerous if you only back up occasionally, because you have to keep in mind that if you get hacked and they try to ransom your data, that's where they get into your computer, secure up your data, and then say, pay me money, otherwise you can delete or exploit your data. If you haven't backed up in a month, you're going to lose a month's worth of work, a month's worth of stuff you're going to need to go back and try to figure out. And that's where people then end up going and paying the ransom, because they're like, oh, the ransom's cheaper than trying to redo all that work. Whereas if you backed up yesterday and they try to do this to them, you tell them to get nicked and just load up your backup and get back to work. So having the right systems in place will save you a lot of money if it does happen or when it happens. It's not a case of if anymore. It's more of a case of when.
So Joel, getting down to tin tacks, mate, like there's someone in your email system. That was what you mentioned before. Someone's been sitting in there watching. How does someone know if they've been hacked or scammed? Like what's the first step to actually knowing that that's happened? Or is that irrelevant? Should you be looking at this along the lines of, there's a chance I have been, so I need to take precautions now. So maybe we're probably better to go down that path. So you're sitting at home, you're running your agribusiness, and you're going, okay, I'm worried about cybercrime, online identity theft, fraud, and hacking. What's the first thing you should be bloody doing?
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to address both of them, Ben. So the first part you said is if you think you've been hacked, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So stop what you're doing and get it checked out. If it does look like if something's iffy, if your computer's running slow, if there's random emails, if it's just not running the way it has always ran, turn your computer off, take it into your local computer shop and get it checked out. Peace of mind is worthwhile the cost of just getting that checked out. On the flip side, yes, I completely agree. People just need to be more conscious in proactively preventing it and making sure they're secure. And there's 4 main areas I talk to businesses about and people and personal people about as well. First thing is passwords. Most hackers are not hacking your computer. It's not like those American movies where it's like hooded guys sitting in a basement trying to crack through your modem and into your computer to steal your data. Yes, that happens, but it's a very low percentage of what's actually happening. They're hacking your accounts. Now, the reason they're hacking their people's accounts is because people are predictable. They're using the same password everywhere, or they're using the password is their kids' names or their pets' names or, their favorite footy team. And the issue is most of this information for most people have been published online somewhere. They published about their favorite footy team during the grand final last year, or they're at their kid's sports carnival and they posted a lovely post about their kid in the sports carnival. They're giving hackers information to try to crack into their accounts. So the best way to secure your accounts is firstly a secure password. Now, In the current terms, a 14-digit password is secure. The reason they say that is an 8-digit password can be hacked within 15 minutes with just a graphics card.
In 15 minutes, they can hack your password if it's how many letters?
8 digits.
8 digits.
So that's what the latest series, 40 series graphics cards have proven, that they can run a program through it. And the graphics card has a bunch of processing speed, and it will just run through a series until it cracks and figures out what the password is. So going to 14 digits turns that from minutes into days, if not weeks. And if you start using special characters and numbers, it increases the severity of how hard it will be to crack that. Now, everyone says to me when I say this, Joel, how the hell do I remember that? Yes, that is bloody hard, and I won't sugarcoat it. It's not easy to remember passwords. But I'll go back to what I said before. If it's easy for you, it's easy for them. If it's hard for you, it's a hell of a lot hard for them. So some tips on passwords is obviously you can get a password management program. Now that means you have one password you need to remember. You make that a nice long secure password, maybe your favorite TV show or your favorite actor, chucking some letters and numbers in there, but something that you will remember that does not directly relate to you or your personal life. And then everything is stored inside them, and all those passwords are gobbledygook. You'll never remember them, but that's what the password program's for. If you don't want to go down the password management program tract, you can always create your own passwords to try to remember. But the one thing is, if you make the most secure password in the world and you use it more than once, they're no longer secure. So you've got to have a different password everywhere. Now, the cyber guy in me wants to say just have a different password everywhere. I know that's not always feasible. People need to be able to remember it. So one tip that I have been giving people, and it's okay. It's not as secure as a completely unique password, but it is more secure than the same password, is pick a paraphrase. Once again, pick your favorite TV show. A lot of people seem to like Home and Away, so let's talk about that one. So Home and Away, that could be the bulk of your password. But instead of writing Home and Away, you might write H0 for the O, M, and then 3 for the E, and then the @ symbol for the A, and then ND, and then another @ symbol for the A, and then W, another @ symbol, and then Y. All of a sudden, you've just got 11 digits of your 14-character password sorted. And they'll be the same 11 digits you use everywhere. But then you chuck a code on that makes you remember the rest of the password depending on the website. So maybe it's Facebook. So you chuck Facebook on the end of it, or Face, or if it's Instagram, or it's email, or whatever it may be, a code thing. Now, all of a sudden, you've hit the 14-character length. The bulk of it is the same, but the hacker still has to figure out the bulk of it as well as the code on the end. So it's made it that little bit harder. Now, I've got a lot of people which use that, and obviously that makes it easier for them. But as I said, if you've got many passwords, I'd still recommend a password management software, because that'll make every password gobbledygook and hard to remember. You wouldn't remember it in your best days, but you just remember the one password. So there's two options there, but yeah, passwords are definitely important. And if you haven't changed your passwords recently, please do. The way hackers are getting into emails by hacking accounts and getting in there, they aren't changing your password. They want to see what you're doing. They want you to keep on using it as normal. The way you get a hacker out of your email, change your password. The hacker isn't in there anymore. They may have your history, but they don't have anything coming in the future. So changing passwords is important. And I do it with my family. We talk about it. But I recommend to most people 6 months or 12 months, just change your password. Jump on, change it. Yes, sure, some people write in that little book and chuck it in their safe. If that's your way of doing things, just got to keep in mind that book now needs to be really protected so someone else doesn't pick up and walk away with it. But yeah, changing passwords is another really key feature to protect those accounts online.
We use a password manager. When Sarah first instigated it, I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. We now know that I was the stupidest person ever. We use it everywhere. We love it. It's encrypted. It's bloody 18 characters. It's got squiggles and dots and all these sorts of things, and it just works beautifully, and I never have to worry about passwords again.
Yep. And the beautiful thing is if one of those websites get hacked, because websites get hacked, it happens, then you don't have to worry about your one password getting exploited and going and having to change that everywhere. You just have to change your password on that website and you're back to business. The second thing I talk to everyone about is emails. Now, emails is the number one attack vector. If they want to get your data or into your accounts, they're going to do it via email. And we all see the spam. We all see those lovely emails trying to sell us blue pills or some romance from Russia or whatever it may be. They're lazy. They're the lazy ones. And we see a regular thing happening where they flood your inbox with obvious spam, and then they'll send you an email which almost looks legit, like it's really well written. It could be right. It's got your name in it. It might even chuck something about your suburb in it. That's when they want to hack you. So you really have to be vigilant on your emails to make sure that you're filtering them. You're going through and checking them, and you're not doing it when you're half asleep and you get going to be liable to click on something. Because we see after Christmas, people get to their inbox and there's hundreds of emails there, and they've got to go through and sort it. And that's what the hackers want. They want you to get tired. They want you to make a mistake. They want you to click that link unbeknownst. Then bang, it's too late. They're in. So with emails, you've got two real choices. You're either going to filter it yourself, or you can get a mail filtering service, which what it does is it's a tool that sits out on the internet that your mail filters through it. And that then blocks majority of the known spam and malicious content. If it says it's from the bank, but it's not actually from the bank, it's blocked. So it keeps your inbox tidy. And therefore, you're really only dealing with legitimate emails from legitimate people. You still have to be conscious on it, because if you turn a spam filter to 100%, you'll never get an email from anybody. So there'll be always some stuff that you still have to be mindful of, but that 90% of that bulk stuff, which just comes through and annoys everybody, will be blocked. So you either filter yourself or you pay for a filtering service. But yeah, you still have to be vigilant with emails, just like you do with the letterbox. You chuck the crap out in the morning when you check your letterbox, the same as you do with your email service. Really be on top of it.
It's just hygiene, good hygiene, isn't it? I have that on my Outlook. Would that do the same thing? Like I've got a junk filter on my Outlook on my laptop. Would that do the same, or is that like a very, very, very basic way of doing that?
Yeah. So the Outlook version, it's still coming into your inbox, and you've got to train Outlook on what is spam and what's not spam, and then it'll automatically delete what's in the spam filter. It's not a filter in the way that it stops it from coming into your email. It'll obviously, so the way you train Microsoft or Google or whoever you're using is when you get one of those dodgy emails, just deleting it actually isn't the best thing to do. Right-clicking on it and marking it as spam and blocking the sender is actually going to let the system know what to watch out for, and obviously then block similar content coming in. So you need to train it up. Whereas these filtering systems will just do it in the background and you won't see it in the first place.
Have you got any names of any companies, Joel, that you can mention in case anyone's looking for something like that?
Well, you got like MailAssure. There's a few different mail filtering platforms, but something like that needs to be set up properly. So I'd recommend to talk to your local IT guy and have a chat to them. It needs to set it up. And one thing to keep in mind, if your emails at gmail.com or at outlook.com, these are not an option for you, because you have to put your business domain at a mail filtering system. So you need to have an at, xyzcattleyards.com would be what you point through the mail filtering system.
Perfect. No, good. That's great advice. So you should speak to your IT specialist that knows cybersecurity to be able to say a mail filtering service. Great.
Yep. So filter through that.
What else?
So the next thing is backing up data. So you can do a lot to protect data, but backing up data is obviously just going to help you in the event that something goes wrong. And it's not only hacking. If the data is accidentally deleted, if a computer crashes, you need to be taking regular backups of your data. Now, there's a strategy that I like to use all the time called 3-2-1. You have 3 copies of your data on 2 different types of media, and you have 1 off-site. That just means that if your data gets corrupted or deleted, you have multiple ways to recover the data. And you always have that 1 off-site because, well, you guys are living on the land. We've got fires here on the Sunshine Coast at the moment where I'm located. If your building does get affected by a natural disaster, you've got the data somewhere else. So therefore you can recover and continue with business. So that was 3 copies of your data. So that's a copy on your computer, maybe a copy in the cloud, maybe a copy on a hard drive. But you have 3 copies of the data. 2 different media types is once again one live you're using on your computer and another one on a drive that's static or cold storage, we call it, because it's disconnected from the internet. And then obviously maybe that is taken off site and it's on a physical separate location. Therefore, it can be recovered if the main location is destroyed or water damaged or whatever may happen.
Yeah, then you can ignore the ransomware and say, too bad, too sad, I've already got data, bugger off.
And obviously think about the sensitivity of your data too, because sometimes ransomware is more about the getting leaked. So obviously you want to protect that as well.
Perfect. What about two-factor authentication is another one I was sort of thinking about, especially with your banking, like to be able to have that two-factor. Can you explain that for us?
Yep. Sorry, I should have brought that up during the password part. Sorry, I overglanced that. But Two-factor authentication, as I said, it's back to that mantra of if it's hard for you, it's hard for them. Now, a lot of people say, oh, two-factor is a pain, and it is. It's a pain to do it because you need to pick up your phone every single time you log into a place and get a text message or use an authenticator app. But what it's doing is if someone gets your username and password and tries to access that account or that service online, then it will obviously, it goes to log in and then it needs another way to authenticate to make sure it's definitely you. So therefore, it'll send a text message or even send an email to a second email, or there's an app called Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, which will give you a 6-digit code. You type that in and bang, Bob's your uncle, you're back to work and you're in there. Now, I've got a funny story about this. I went through Dubai, this is many years ago, and I used the free Wi-Fi. Now, I don't recommend it, guys. If free Wi-Fi is definitely a thing, but even I needed to use internet at this time, and I wasn't buying a SIM card in Dubai for 2 hours. By the time I got to England, I had 3 attempts to log into my Microsoft account. Now, the reason they didn't get into my Microsoft account is because they didn't have my two-factor code. So somewhere on that Wi-Fi, there may have been some type of keylogger, something that tracked my password and recorded my password and then tried to access. But the two-factor saved my bacon and kept my account secure. And I knew that someone was trying to do it. And I think that's a great story to explain what two-factor does. It just stops them in their tracks. I had to go change my password, obviously, because my password was exploited, but they never got access to my account without the two-factor code. I recommend to use it wherever possible.
So the other thing also too, just because we're getting close to time now, is also just check your bank accounts. I mean, we've had us personally have had 2 fraudulent transactions on cards over the last 12 months. One was the day we were leaving the country to go to New Zealand, and there's something fishy going on there because it came out and it suspiciously looked like a transaction in New Zealand before we'd left the country. And the second one was randomly, it was just $5,500 came up on a business account on a card that we hadn't even activated. And it was $5,000 and it was with Tiffany's in New York. And it was only that Sarah's very vigilant with our bank accounts and keeps an eye on them, that both of those we noticed within 24 hours, contacted the bank and we got the money back, luckily. Yeah. But if we hadn't been vigilant watching our bank accounts, then we probably wouldn't have seen the transactions go through. So, okay, Joel, is there anything else, mate, people can do before there's one other thing I want to ask you about. So is there anything else people can do to sort of get started off to protect themselves?
Yep. As I said, protecting your device and antivirus is always good. But the main thing that I want to focus on with a lot of people is let's educate the next generation on how to use technology properly. Because one thing I find is a lot of parents think because little Billy or Sally sat on the computer all Saturday playing video games, they must know something about the computer. They don't. It's a false sense of security. And what we're finding is these kids are then getting into the workforce and they think they know more about computers when they don't. They're overconfident and they're making mistakes. Now, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff out there that I recommend to parents to use even on their consoles or on their computers called parental controls. If you haven't done it yet, I'd seriously recommend it because parental controls are going to do 3 main things. Firstly, it's going to help you limit your child's use of devices. Limiting use of devices is obviously going to make sure they get some of that vitamin D when they go out and get some sunshine during the day because they can't sit on their console all day. But it's also going to remove the fact that they're going to think they're a professional because they sat on the computer for 8 hours playing video games, because they're going to have a little bit more respect for the device. Because I use a regular saying, is your technology a toy or a tool? Because too many people use tech as a toy, but they aren't using it as an efficient tool. The second thing is it limits their exposure to content. That's another big thing. Kids love to explore. Kids love to get information. And even if it's from the wrong source, they find it. But if you're using a parental control, it'll block those unnecessary websites, whether it's adult content or malicious content. That's the type of stuff we don't want to see. There's a lot of wars going on at the moment and a lot of videos getting posted, which I would hate my 14-year-old to lay eyes on because it could be disturbing. So parental controls are going to block that. And the last thing parental controls really do that I find good is it teaches responsible usage of tech. They need to come to you and ask, can I install this new program? Can I put this new game on it? You can have a chat to them and go, is it of age? Is the content appropriate for your age? Is it a good program for the computer? Where are you getting it from? Is it from a dodgy website? Is it actually a legitimate game? And you can have a conversation with your kids to get them to learn to respect technology rather than just have a free-for-all. We wouldn't just go buy our kids a car and throw them the keys and say, here, go knock yourself out, go drive, without teaching them how to use it first. You need to do the same with computers. I think a lot of parents aren't comfortable with computers and they think kids will find their way because we've had to do it. But we're of the state now that we can really slow our kids down and make sure they learn how to use technology properly. And I see that as being the big thing for them. When they hit the workforce, they're going to have a lot more respect and they're going to know, okay, cool, I need to double check. I'm not an expert on this. I need to ask the tech guys, can I install this and can I do that? So if I can stress anything, is let's arm ourselves with the right type of cyber strategies, but let's also set our kids up for success.
I think that's a really important point, and that was the one I'm going to ask you because I've got nieces and nephews and my daughter's just getting to sort of 7 and starting to explore computers, and I think that's a chink in the armour, not only the protecting your children from the dangers online, which is a whole other podcast in itself, but it's also about, well, they're the chink in the armour because they will click, they'd have no idea about what to click, what not to click, and that could be a chink in the armour. So one thing that Sarah said to me, and I just want to touch on really briefly before we sign off, is reporting it. If you think you've been hacked or something's happened, I'm guessing the first thing to do is go to your bank ASAP as soon as you've noticed it and report it. I know the 2 times we did, we had to sit on hold for 45 minutes, but I'm glad we did it. So report it. But also there's a government organisation, isn't there, also that you can report that cybercrime straight away and they can start investigating it. Is that right? And is it time critical you do that?
Yes, definitely. So not all hacks are financial. Obviously, if it's financial, get your bank involved straight away, like Ben said. But other hacks, obviously, if they're in your email and stuff like that, you may not need to call your bank because they haven't done anything financial to you yet. But there's a website called cyber.gov.au. Really easy to remember. cyber.gov.au. Don't go .com.au, that's a business. .gov.au is the one you want to go to. Now, on that website is where you report cyber. Report anything. They want to know about near misses. They want to know about full-on attacks. The more we report, the better resources are going to get thrown at this and the more help that we're going to get for all parts of our community. On that website, they've also invested heavily in training. Now, there is modules for everybody. There's modules for kids. There's modules for young families. There's modules for elderly. There's modules for small business, large business. And in there's training. So there's actual exercises you can do to test yourself and not get your knowledge up, as well as there's exercises like discussion-based exercises to ask questions, help identify risks. And out of that, I challenge everybody to make a plan. When you get hacked, it's a very stressful time. When you're stressed, you panic, you make some silly decisions, and sometimes you can make life worse. Having a plan will just be as simple as print it out. Firstly, if your computer's inaccessible, you can't get the plan, so print it out and going, okay, cool, this has happened. Here's the people we need to call. These are the steps we need to do. And this is how we're going to mitigate the risk of this hack from getting any worse. So yeah, cyber.gov.au, jump on there, have a click around, heaps of really good resources written for all parts of the community. That's where you report and that's where you learn. And I can't stress it enough. Don't have to spend money on cyber training. They've got it there. Go check it out.
Perfect. Well, that's great, mate. Well, we've run out of time now, so we're going to have to wrap up. I've got a whole heap of notes there for myself, which is fantastic. But I think this has to be part of your disaster recovery now, I think, in any business. If you're running a business, the risks are just way too high, not only with reputation damage, but you lose your personal documentation. There's cash on the line with, like we said, invoice fraud, data backup. If you've got confidential information on there, you don't want it shared around. And you've given us some really great ways to actually do that today. Thanks, Joel. Now, mate, can you tell us a little bit about your business? You're into IT and cybersecurity. You're our IT company. That's how we found you guys. Sarah uses you guys for all our IT needs. Can you tell us a little bit about the company before we sign off?
Yep. So ProComputers was started back in 1993 in Caloundra. It's now expanded to 11 stores across Queensland, from Beenleigh far south up to Rockhampton in the north. We've got both retail and a business dedicated team. And we do the managed IT services like most IT companies, but our main focus is cybersecurity. So we provide full layered security services for customers to make sure that we're protecting all areas of their business so they can operate with the peace of mind knowing that they've got backups in place, their passwords are encrypted and secure, their emails are being filtered, and their systems are being monitored, maintained, and updated. So we take on all different size businesses, but the one thing that ProComputers does well is we make sure that businesses are set up for success. We don't take on every single business that comes to us because it's a two-way street when it comes to cybersecurity. We need to make sure that your business is doing the right stuff on your side of the agreement, and we do the right stuff on our side of the agreement, and it's happy days. So it's about the stuff we've been talking about today. I can't sit in front of everyone's computer and monitor their emails for them. I can't sit in front of their computer and make sure they put the right passwords in. So it's making sure that they understand what they need to do. And then we take the back end out of the equation for them and look after it for them and make sure that it's maintained and send updates and stuff like that. But yeah, our retail stores can fix your computers. and our business team can look after your business.
Fantastic. Now, if anyone wants to reach you, Joel, to discuss this more, mate, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so they can email me directly. My email is joel@procomputers.com.au, or even give me a call. I don't always answer the phone, but I do check my messages and I do call people back. So my mobile, we'll put in the notes.
Perfect, mate. Well, look, I really appreciate this today. I know we've only scratched the surface, but what I've tried to give us all just a really big overview. And I think the secret to success in all of these things is good hygiene when it comes to the computers, making sure you got your passwords right, etc. But it's also about having the right people around you to be able to outsource getting some of the key critical infrastructure or processes in place. So, mate, great job. I reckon we'll get you back on here again in the not too distant future, and we might drill into one of these areas a little bit deeper.
Excellent. No, sounds good. We'd be happy to. Thanks, Ben.
Well, I've written a whole lot of notes for myself, and I'm just going to summarize those down before we go, just to be able to, distill all that correct information that Joel's given us today. Number one, passwords. Make sure you don't have the same password for everything you possibly use, and make sure it's not simple and easy to get. Remember, he said if you have it at 8 digits, it'll take like 15 minutes or something like that to crack it with just a normal old computer. And if you take it up to 14 digits, that'll take them days and days to try and do it. So also throw in some symbols. So not just, my dog is Jim, add some zeros, add some numbers, add some special characters to make it harder for the hackers to be able to hack. That was really important. And also use a password manager. I use KeePass. Another one out there is LastPass. Google it. Figure out which one you might want to use for yourself. Number two, be really careful with your emails. Remember, email hygiene. If you're using Outlook or Google or something like that, if anything comes in, don't just delete it. Put it, mark it as junk. But if you want to do extra, is get a mail filter service. Your IT specialist will be able to set that up for you. Number three, back up your data. Make sure you've got backups. Joel said 3 backups, 1 off-site. That's super important in case you get hacked and they give you a ransomware. You think it's not a big deal. You don't have that much on your computer, but you've got all your personal photos, copies of ID. There's a whole lot of things you're going to have on there which you don't want to have to try and recreate. So get a backup of that. And again, your IT specialist can help you with that. Number 4, 2-factor authentication. That's just a little app that's quite often on your mobile phone. I've got one called Google Authenticator on my phone, where what happens is you put your password in, the website then says 2-factor authentication. You go into your Google app on your phone. Unless the hacker's got your phone, they can't get into that website. Really important one. Number 5, check your bank accounts. Keep a close eye on them. Suspicious transactions. I've had 2 in the last 12 months. It happens more and more frequently, and you want to catch it and be able to tell the bank as soon as possible, because you've got the greatest chance of getting that money back. Number 6, antivirus. Make sure you've got a really good antivirus software on your computer. It's not going to protect you completely, but at least that's some protection. And again, get a specialist IT person to put that on, especially if you're running a business. And number 7, parental controls. Educate your children around good cybersecurity, and don't just give them unfettered access. Kids will click on things, download programs, go to websites. The gaming world is full of those sorts of things. So make sure you get your parental controls on your devices and you've trained your kids on good quality cybersecurity. Number 8 was report any cybercrimes ASAP. If it's money related, go straight to your bank first. And then number 2, go to cyber.gov.au. You can report that crime there. Number 1 is they can chase down the criminals and potentially get some money back, potentially. But number 2, it also helps these specialists find out how often these scams are happening and what sort of scams, so they can help people. I know there's a lot of points here, everyone, so just bear with me. And you can do that cyber training for yourself and your kids. That's really important. But I think the last one I just want to finish up on is number 8 I wrote down, is talk about it. If you've been hacked, if you've been scammed, if you've lost some money, or if you've had any scares, talk to your friends about it. Really make sure we put this out in the public eye, because the more we talk about it, the more it can be fixed. And finally, if you're running a business, if you're running a big business or a small business, pay someone to make sure you're protected. Sarah and I do. Joel does our IT. Sarah's a computer systems engineer, but we still outsource it because they know what they're doing. They know where the holes are, and they'll give you the best chance of protection. But remember, you outsource help, but it's up to you to make sure you protect your computer, making sure you've got, as you said, don't click on what you shouldn't have done. You make sure you've got good quality passwords. You can't outsource responsibility. You can just outsource help to make sure you've maximized your chance of protection. So if you want to sleep well at night, think about those things. It should be part of your disaster recovery plan in place. And yeah, if you've got any questions, I'll put Joel's contact details in the show notes. Well, that's it for today. What a great episode. If you think anyone out there might potentially need to hear about cybersecurity, it's not something we want to think about, but it's something we should address, by all means, share this episode with anyone you can. Well, that's it for this week. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.